Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Wednesday, a little late today, Tom. A little technical difficulties. It happens, right? We're renegades. Renegades, things come up, and it is what it is.
People on the podcast don't know that.
That's right. That's right. They don't know. But we are running 14 and a half minutes late from our usual 8 a.m. Eastern time kickoff, although it's a fluid 8 o'clock. We've gotten more and more lax about that.
I know, and I'm sure that drives you nuts because I know that.
It does cause me a great deal of personal stress each day.
I have to work on letting that go somehow.
Yes. I'm working on letting a lot of stuff go. I was listening to a podcast. I was driving yesterday, and I was learning all about radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance.
Do you know what radical acceptance is?
I do not.
So I'm going to describe it the best way I can. There are experts that spend a lot of time really thinking about it, but basically it's accepting that you're in the situation you're in. Leaning into the fact that you may be uncomfortable, leaning into the fact that you may be frustrated, and just saying, you know what, in this moment, I'm frustrated. I like when we start right on time, we started late. And rather than allowing that to be, Tom's such a loser, I can't believe this, drives me crazy. Just, you know what, I'm frustrated because we started late today. There it is. And once you say it out loud, for me, what I'm realizing is when I say it out loud to myself or in my head, it dissipates a lot of those emotions around it.
It's kind of like saying, it's just what's real.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely correct in that. I think that is another way of saying it. It's also a way of recognizing that you can't control things. That I can't control whether we start at 8 o'clock. I can do certain things to encourage that, but there are some technical things that you have to take care of that thankfully I don't have to do it. So if I wanted to take over those things, I could, I think, but I really don't want to. So but that's the tug of war. And I think as leaders, as owners, as renegades, we come up to these things often. You want to have a customer. You go to a networking event. You want to have a customer come out of that. You lead a team meeting and you want consensus. Sure. Hey guys, we're going to do this, and you get a completely opposite result, and you go back to your office. Versus, okay, that's how it is right now. How can I start to influence that going forward? How can I make changes? So I think it's helping me in a lot of aspects of my life. Like I don't know why I'm telling you this, but it's a crazy example. I'm in Baltimore now. I've been at the beach. I'm in Baltimore, and our cat's here. And I have a habit of wanting to know where the cat is all the time. And Laura said to me yesterday, she's like, the cat's in the house. She can't get out of the house. She's in the house. She's doing her cat thing. Why do you just let her be a cat and you just be you? And if you intersect, that's great. And I was like, which is radically accepting that I have absolutely no control over what the cat does or doesn't do.
Unless you pick it up.
Unless I pick it up, which she doesn't like very often.
Yeah.
That's a good way to get some marks, which I don't know.
Fair enough.
Well, I don't know, Tom, if I've said anything of value so far, but it's certainly a weird introduction to our program.
Well, I think that it's just interesting that there's a lot of ways that people can think about what I would just say is what's real. And it can change. If you had a power outage and the whole thing went, you'd be like, yeah, that's not great. And I can't control that.
Right.
There's nothing I can do about that. So I'm going to go back and figure it out. Now, obviously there are things that we can control. And, for us, it'd be good to go back and say, okay, what went well, what didn't go as planned, what might I do differently, and see if we can't get closer to 8 o'clock to start.
Well, and the other thing that's probably coloring this for me is last week you gave 2 workshops where you talked about the idea of what's within our control and what's outside of our control. And I think that really struck me in the sense of I can't control a lot of things. And I think in talking to other people who participate in one or the other of your workshops, they came away with the same thing. It's like, I can't control if someone buys something from me. I can influence it, maybe, maybe not, but I cannot make them take their credit card out, hand over the credit card without. So you could, but that's probably not going to be a long-term solution to growing a business.
Correct. You might end up in jail.
Yes, which probably is a bad, that would be reckless, right? We haven't said the word reckless in a number of months, so I wanted to make sure we get reckless. Tom's always
reckless, and thanks. I appreciate that. You've come to be okay with that, which I like. It's now what's real for you is that reckless is a part of your language. You struggled with that for a while. I did. Well, and this is one of the things I don't think people realize. We are finding the words as we go here. And I was telling someone, they're like, you guys do such a great job. And I said, you should go back to our 100th episode. It wasn't anything like this. And I've gone back. I've gotten as far back as 100. We've learned a lot. Well, had we ever done this before?
No, we have not. And we've also kept true. Where I think it shifted for me and got better was when you and I agreed that we were going to do this for ourselves. That the audience that we cared most about was the 2 of us. If you see value in it, if I see value in it, that's enough. That other people are paying attention to it, that's great. I love it. I don't mind that. But if everyone said, you guys should do this at 8 p.m., I wouldn't be into it. Don't recommend that.
When did you discover that?
When did I discover what?
On what episode did you realize that?
Which that?
That what was most important was that we were doing this for us.
We had a discussion around episode 300.
Okay.
And it really shifted things for me. I'll tell you more later because it's probably not useful to the audience to hear this, but I think as a result of that, I've become more open and more honest in it. And the persona of Bob has faded away and the real Bob has come to the fore. I wouldn't have shared what I shared at the beginning of this episode, but Tom, people are waiting for important stuff here. So it is today's antidote. That's Tom, I'm Bob. We have different voices. So if you're on the podcast, it's great. And if you're on the podcast, let me just tell you, or YouTube, we sound so much smarter at 1.5 speed. I can tell you, I binge every podcast, every YouTube video at 1.5 speed. You can get through an hour video, an hour podcast in what, 2/3? 1.5. I don't know. What's it? 75?
I was waiting to see that math.
I boxed myself into a corner. So what we do each day is we try to figure out that one thing. Give you one thing that you can think about, that you can wrestle with, that you can try to see if it fits into your life. Some days it fits. Some days it doesn't. Sometimes it might fit today, but it might not fit today. And it might fit next Tuesday when you go, wow, those guys were talking about radical acceptance. Man, that was kind of interesting. I think that would work here. Our goal is to give you that one thing. And if you'd like to contribute your one thing, we'd love to see it. You can put it in the Facebook chat. You can put it on the YouTube. The YouTube. That sounds like the Google.
Or the Facebook.
Yes, the Facebook. You can also email it to us at ringleaders@renegadesuccessnetwork.com. You can also go to our Facebook group, which is an exclusive and private group, and Tom will tell you more about that later. But Tom, as we move forward, and I like once a week to run the show, it just makes me feel better about life.
Really?
So I'm just going to keep rolling.
I hadn't noticed.
What we like to celebrate. And the reason we celebrate, and I had someone ask me yesterday, why do you guys really believe so much in celebrating? We've found that celebration, looking at what you've accomplished and celebrating what you did, whether or not it worked the way you thought or not, that you took the action, is a real accelerant to you taking more actions. It makes it easier. So Tom, today, what are you celebrating?
So I am celebrating that, as you mentioned earlier, last week I gave a presentation and I had someone reach out to me. Someone actually asked a question in the conversation that sparked something. And I had offered to anyone in the room is that if they wanted to follow up with a conversation, that'd be happy to schedule that. And then we could talk. And so someone took me up on that, actually a couple of people. But this one person was struggling with some things. We were set up the call to talk about one thing. And then once we got in there, we discovered that there was something else behind that one thing. And the opportunity to help someone in ways like that, this wasn't a paid gig. It wasn't a coaching session. It was just an opportunity in some ways to help mentor someone, more importantly, just to help them try to work through a challenge. And I think, I believe that they found value in this, actually great value in it. And hopefully that will help them as they move forward. And I think there's something about that's why I do this, is that so people discover things, that it's about how do I help others with the knowledge, experience, and perspective that I've had move forward beyond whatever the challenges that they are having. And whether that's as a friend, a mentor, or in a coaching relationship, that's why I love doing what I'm doing. So that is what I'm celebrating, is one, the ability to do it, and two, that I was able to help someone come up with some next steps when I don't think they saw any insight.
That's awesome. I like it. So I'm celebrating today the fact that I'm gainfully employed. And this really hit me yesterday. I was driving home from the beach and a friend of mine texted me and said, I got fired today. And this is a very talented person. I really, oh my God, wow, and as I was thinking about it this morning, it's like, I'm really blessed that I can find a way to make money and do that. And I think often, especially when we're entrepreneurs, we're constantly looking at I don't make enough. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I don't make as much as I made at my last job. I have to pay so many taxes. And it turned things around for me this morning. It's like, I'm really doing what I want to do. And I'm not going to get fired by someone. I'm the boss. Correct. It's me. And that recognition really, it just hit me. I hadn't thought about that until this morning. Like, yes, I know I was the boss, but I also know that gives me much more flexibility than someone who works, whether it's for a company and they change the leadership, the government, they change politicians that are running the show, or just, you've been in a situation where the boss changes.
Correct. And
the rules change. And it's like, whoa, time out. That's not how I was rolling. Not real comfortable with that. Can we let's recalibrate? No, we'd rather not recalibrate. Nice having you.
Yes.
I think we forget how blessed we are. And I know with a lot of my clients, it's constantly, I'm not making as much as I want. I'm not doing as well. And I think really recognizing how far we've come, it's a celebration. I'm celebrating the fact that I've come this far. This is further than I've ever come. And there's a lot of potential here. So
there's always potential. Absolutely.
So
that's awesome.
I'm going to keep going. I'm in a take charge mode today.
Yep. And I'm not sure I have any control over that. So I could mute you, I guess. There is some control I could have in that. I'm not going to exercise that today.
Here's what I'm thinking, people, just to let you in on a thing. Every day that we start 5 minutes or more late, I'm just going to take charge because I can tell that Tom doesn't know what's coming and this is fun.
Just what's real.
So we've been talking this week about the 4 Fs, the Renegade 4 Fs. And I love that Tom, and I didn't make the connection when we were talking about it, but Tom said earlier this week that often Fs are a bad grade in school and you don't want Fs. But as renegades, we want these 4 Fs. Yesterday, we talked about focus. Today, we're going to talk about flexibility and freedom. The renegade having flexibility and freedom. And tomorrow, just so you know what the final one is, it's fun. So Tom, as we talk through these, what are your thoughts on what's the matter? You're giving me a weird look.
Well, what did you forget?
Oh, I forgot the national celebration.
You're out.
All right, fair enough.
So Bob,
here's what
we
today's
celebrating
day is. This is National Civics Day.
Oh.
So part of being a citizen of our great country, if you live in the US, if you live outside the US, you do things civically to support your country. But within the US, we vote, we pay attention to politics, we have the ability to influence politics in various ways. This is a day that's focused on the whole idea of civics. And if you've seen Hamilton, the play, or listen to the soundtrack, a lot of the civics goes back to the Federalist Papers. I think it was 1792 and Alexander Hamilton. And I would be happy if you want, Tom, I can sing some excerpts from Hamilton for you.
How many did he write?
How many Federalists? Didn't he write like 58 of the 72 or something? He was supposed to write half of them, and he was an overachiever.
Well, you said that you were going to sing. I thought that's what you were going to sing, is how many he wrote, how many Madison wrote, and how many John Jay wrote.
That wouldn't be, no, I was going to sing from, what's the song? Look around. How lucky you are.
To be alive right now?
Yes, Eliza, you should have told me where, yeah. We're probably violating copyright right now. This episode's going to get thrown out because we violated the Hamilton copyright.
Yeah, I doubt that. And, okay.
I will tell you, all kidding aside, the Hamilton soundtrack, certain songs on that soundtrack are like my go-to.
Sure. I would say me as well.
If I had a nickel for every time I've heard the song Helpless, I couldn't even tell you. I wouldn't need to work anymore.
Good to know.
And what's the song where George Washington is saying he's not going to run for office?
I think it's Goodbye.
Yes.
Teach me how to say goodbye.
Yep. That's great. I know you know this very well. Have you seen this show?
Yes, I have.
In New York?
No, I saw it in Baltimore.
Oh, okay. I've only seen it on Disney Plus or whatever. And it blew my mind. I thought up till that point, Les Mis was the best. And this is on par with Les Mis.
But Les Mis has nothing to do with civics. Well, kind of does.
I think it kind of does. Yeah. I think there's some civics. Nice segue back to it. So Tom, as we continue, because we have gone all over the map today, this is definitely an episode for the books. What are your thoughts on the whole idea of flexibility and freedom as a renegade? Because often we don't think of that.
Sure. And when we first were talking about this concept, and then we talked about, well, let's do it on the show. One of the things that I was struggling with is the difference between flexibility and freedom. And you actually did a really nice job of laying that out. Now I forget if you did that on the show. It wasn't
on the show. It was yesterday afterwards.
Okay. But I thought you did a nice job of laying out the difference, and that flexibility in some ways is a lot about being able to kind of go with the flow. To be like, because there are things that are out of our control, and if we understand that, we have to be a little bit flexible to be like, okay, this happened, and rather than let it derail me, I'm able to say, this is what's real. Now, how do I move forward with it and learn from it? And I thought that was a really great way to help me understand the difference. And then freedom clearly is the ability that we have to make the choices that we want to make for our business, for our team, for ourselves. and I think it's interesting. In that presentation I did last week was that a lot of it was initially going to be about organizational growth and how to look at organizational growth. And yet I got some feedback, some comments from it that people were like, I came in looking for organizational growth. And I also realized that some of the things that was discussed were really great for my own personal growth. And so I think that overlap is so often apparent in what we do in our work and what we do in our lives. And, I think the opportunity to choose the next step is a big piece of it. And so that concept of freedom and flexibility became a little clearer, and I could find a way to separate them when at the start of this week, I was not sure how to differentiate between the two.
I like to think of the flexibility as things that I am dealing with. So flexibility is, I was going to work on the budget today, but one of my key employees didn't come to work. They were sick. And so now I need to plug into their role. And I'm not going to be able to do that budget work that I plan to do. And being okay with that, because if you're using our Renegade Day Pack, you understand the bigger picture. You understand that, yes, the budget's really important today, but if the phone doesn't get answered, there is no need for a budget. And so I really think of flexibility as that in the office, in the moment, whatever that office looks like, the things that you have to deal with in the box of your office. I think of freedom as those things outside, the outside forces. So your personal life, your family, you plan to be at work today all day, not work from home. You told everyone you'd be in at work, and then you have a sick child. You've got to be home with your child. To me, that's part of the freedom. Or the freedom I told you earlier today. Next week, I have a relative coming into town. I plan to work in the morning till 11, and then he and I are going out to play golf Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I will get my work done. I will work different times to accommodate that. And not everyone has that flexibility. Not everyone has that freedom.
I might disagree with that. If they're planning and they know that this is coming, it might not be how they choose to use their vacation or personal time. And still they could say, this is important to me. This opportunity to spend that time to go play golf with their friend or to do whatever, something else that brings them pleasure, they could choose to do that. I'm not sure people look at it that way. I think so often they consider that I have to be at my desk or I have to be at my job. And the only reason to take vacation is when you plan
the obligatory week in July.
Correct.
Because we've always done it the second week of July.
Yeah, or whatever your routine is, to think about vacation as this is an opportunity for me to do the things that I love to do. So I guess that would be my only thing, is that I think we almost every job that I know of, you have the ability to take some vacation or personal time.
Well, I think of a brick and mortar store. That's a little difficult. You can't easily close your hardware store for 4 days. You don't want to close at 11 o'clock Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because people will go elsewhere. If you've got a little store, they're going to go to Home Depot or Lowe's, which is open all the time. However, you could be a renegade and create different staffing opportunities.
Sure.
And I think that's what, to me, the freedom really is to think of what works for you. I really struggled for a while when I left my first job to run a business. I really struggled with not being at work till 5 o'clock every day. I felt guilty. I felt like I wasn't doing the job. But now I've realized I was working last night. We're up doing this every morning. There's work before this, and I don't factor that in. I always think of my workday starts at 9 o'clock, and someone said to me, you were on the phone with me at 6:30. Doesn't that count for work? That was before breakfast, so it doesn't count. They're like, no, that counts. I just had this weird thing, and I think that's one of the other things that we often do. We don't really think about how many hours we work, and more importantly, the effectiveness. Because I told you today that I was going to do that next week, and I said, because of that, I've got to get some things done today.
Yeah, you're actually planning to be able to do that rather than saying, oh, I'm going to take it off. Now, if you had planned well enough and you said, hey, you know what? I know what I have left to do during the day, and none of it is vital to get done today. Great. I can choose to do it tomorrow. I could choose to do it later at night. I could get up early. Those are all options that we do have, choices that we can make. It's just we have to consider those things.
Right. And you demonstrated some flexibility and freedom last week when you were trying to put together the presentation. And I think you were getting frustrated a little bit and you were thinking through it. And you said, you know what? I'm just going to go to bed and hit this again the next day. That to me is flexibility and freedom.
Sure.
Hey, I know I've hit the wall. I need some distance. And now I'm going to come back to it. And what happened the next day? You came back to it with clarity, with focus, with all the things that help get things done. And I think sometimes we think that sitting at a desk for 8 hours is going to accomplish the task. I've taught writing over the years, and students will always say, I have writer's block. And I'm like, no, you don't. I don't buy it. What do you mean? Like, I've written hundreds of thousands of words, hundreds. I've never had writer's block. Like, what? I said, no. I've had times when I don't know what I'm trying to write because I haven't figured it out yet. But that's not writer's block. That's just I haven't done the internal work to get to the place where, hey, what am I really trying to say here and how can I do it? And I think that's what we struggle with in business and in leading. What am I trying to do and how can I achieve it? Whether it's writing, whether it's leading a team meeting, whether it's getting a board to shift their whole focus, whether it's getting employees to pay attention to a policy that's been written down for 3 years, but no one ever pays attention to it because, we don't really like that policy. It's all those things.
Sure.
And I think what I love about our day pack as we keep talking about it and how it gives us this focus, flexibility, freedom, and fun is that it grounds this whole thing. When I was talking to you earlier, it was like, Tom, I know what I have to do. I need to get these videos done, and I'm going to work on them today and have it done. And I didn't have that clarity 3 months ago. I just didn't. And I think it makes it very comforting to me to know that I can be off next week in the afternoons for a couple of days and not feel like my business is tanking. I can't do it. And the reason it's only the afternoon, not the full day, is I have coaching clients and I wanted to give them access to me during the week. So this was the flexibility that I demonstrate. Can't just be like, I could say, guys, I'm not around next week. Sorry, figure it out yourself. But I didn't think that helped me achieve my business objectives. That wasn't the coach I wanted to be. So now there'll be a couple of people who go, I really would like to talk to you in the morning or in the afternoon. Is there any way you can do that? I'm really sorry. I just can't. And they'll adapt, right?
Sure. And that's the choice and control that you have.
If I choose to use it.
Correct.
And I've never chosen as powerfully as I do now.
That's a great step to identify. Congratulations.
And a lot's happening because of it.
Right.
I think it's funny. That would be to a lot of people, whoa, that scares me. That's going to really slow things down. I think it's actually sped things up for me.
Well, you think about it is you could look at it. It's all about your perspective. You could look at it two different ways. You could say, wow, I'm going to go play golf in the afternoon. Must mean I don't have enough work.
Right.
Or you could look at it and say, my business is going so well that I'm in such control of what I need to accomplish that I can choose to go and do that.
And there's a certain amount of, I've earned this.
Yeah.
I've worked really hard to get to this place. And if I can't celebrate that in a way that matters to me,
right,
what's the use?
Yeah. Right. Correct. That's the piece of it. You do this so that you have a lot of people choose the path they choose because they're looking for that flexibility and freedom.
Right.
And this is an opportunity for them to do that.
Right. Just like some police officers like to work night shift.
Correct.
They just like having that opposite schedule. Okay, great.
Sure.
That's a choice.
It is a choice. So as we wrap this up, see what I did there?
I see.
What's your one thing today, Bob?
I think it's that we have more freedom and flexibility over our work life than we usually recognize. I think the paradigm shift for me is the 9-to-5 mentality that I was taught as a child works in some cases, but it doesn't work in all cases. And I really had to unlearn that. And I had to unlearn the hourly mentality of getting paid for an hour's work. If it, we've been on this now for what, 31 minutes. I don't know what its value is. It could be millions of hours. It could be nothing. It doesn't matter. Whereas a lot of times I talk to people and they're like, okay, well, you spent a half hour on that. My hourly rate is this. You spend a half an hour, so it's half of this. Did you get something in return for that? And I think that one-to-one relationship is not accurate and not easy to identify. And the flexibility and freedom are the way to combat that one-to-one mentality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's, I think it's a matter of, are you getting paid for your time or you're getting paid for your value, the value that you provide?
Right.
And I think that those are, again, depending on what is real for you, you can choose which one of those you believe is real in the moment. And I think as I think about it and think about my one thing, I think that really, to me, it's interesting how this wraps up. The flexibility and freedom is a lot about what you control and what you don't control. Is that if you can get to that point where you realize you don't control everything, you can either say that limits your flexibility and freedom, or you can say that actually, you know what? That improves it. It gives me the opportunity because I can be okay with something comes up. If something comes up next week that you absolutely positively had to do, and one day you couldn't go play golf, you have the ability to choose that, right? If somebody called you and said, oh my gosh, Bob, I really need your help on this, struggling with this, it's an emergency. You have the choice to say, you know what, I'm really sorry. I can't do it then. Or to say, you know what, we're going to play 9 holes. We're going to take a break for lunch. And then I'm going to take this phone call and then we're going to go back out. And I hope
you have not put this into the universe and it's going to happen, because I find it really hard to do both.
Here's the thing. You have the choice.
Yes.
Correct. You can choose you don't take yourself, you leave your cell phone in the car.
You're getting garbled, Tom.
Okay. But
yeah, you're fading out on us.
I can't control that at the moment.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep going. So, folks, we've had this discussion about flexibility and freedom. If you want to talk more about that, or if you want to know more about the day pack that we mentioned a couple of times, Tom or I would love to talk to you. All you have to do is reach out to us. You can go to the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, join that group. You'll be able to access us there. We're posting almost every day. One or both of us post something. We watch all the comments on there. That Ring of Renegades Facebook group is an exclusive group. It's private because we want to give people safe space to actually really look at these issues. If you were surprised at how open and candid Tom and I were today, that's what that group is all about, giving people that space to wrestle with these things, because we think there needs to be that space. And it's hard to find that space when you go to a networking event, because you have to have that happy face on. And you can't talk to your colleagues at work if you're in an office environment, because they're going to think you're weak. So we've tried to create this place where people can really explore these issues, talk through these issues, and get the guidance, support, encouragement, and motivation that they need. If that's something you want to do, go to the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, just apply. We will probably let you in. We're going to ask you why you think you're a renegade. Not what? Am I doing okay?
Yeah, I'm just listening. Keep going.
I just like watching your facial expressions. It's priceless. We'll ask you why you're a renegade. It's not a high bar that you have to meet to tell us. It's just to think about that idea of renegade in your life. And I would tell you, it's worth the time to think about that for a minute or two. And then, of course, we would love it if you're listening to our podcast. Yes, listening to our podcast. Thank you so much. We would love for you to rate it 5 stars. We'd also love for you to share it with other people. That is the single best gift you can give Tom and me, truly, to share it with someone who it might matter to. And just say, I felt like this was something that I needed to share with you, and I don't know if it's going to resonate. You want to build a better relationship with people? Share things with them that you think will help them. That is a great way to have a touch with the person where you're like, I don't know what to say if I call them. Send them an episode of the Ring of Renegades and be like, hey, this is it. Or you should join this group. So there are a couple hints for you. Tom, what did I miss?
I think you got it all.
Okay.
Hopefully. If not, you know what? We just can't control it. We appreciate you being with us today. If you have one thing you'd like to share, please feel free to put it in the comments. If not, we will hopefully see you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for our next edition. No, 8 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay. All right.
For our next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Hey, embrace the renegading you.
Thanks for listening to today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.